We are now officially moving on to hour 2 with Arne Hansen here, one of the leaders in renewable energy. And I've just currently asked him a question to blow his fucking mind away. What is the biggest adversary? What's your big problem that you find in the future 10, 15 years from now that you see as the problem?
Stage tanks now pressurized.
Yeah, news certainly does get around, doesn't it?
Hello, people of the world.
3 or 4 hot tips a month.
There was a firefight! Wow! It doesn't build character, it reveals it.
That's an A, Cotton.
I want you to hit me as hard as you can.
Like, what's your biggest?
The biggest problem we've got. Oh, sorry, I just had a leaky beer. Sorry.
Oh, mate. What's going on over here? Once again, we're moving on to hour 2 of the podcast.
Oh, I've changed up to a cricketer's arms.
Oh, cricketer's arms. What the fuck is that? Spearhead Pale Ale?
Spearhead Pale Ale. 5.2%.
Oh, mate. Did you know, a fun fact,
Melbourne beer.
did you know that Colorado has no fucking laws on the percentage of alcohol? You can go to a bar and get a 48% alcoholic beer. There's a place I've been told that you can get a shot that's like 90% alcohol. And then you're just fucked up. And like, you're just about to fucking die. And it's like, so wait, we have laws on pot, opioids, everything else. But when it comes to alcohol, our country's like, well, there's countries like, get fucking wasted. Do it.
Australia is highly regulated when it comes to that sort of thing.
Which is crazy because the culture is so drink heavy, but it makes you think, like, what would things be like if, Arne, imagine if every place you went, every bar was like, we got one that's Jimmy's Pale Ale from up the road, 48%.
48.
The whole country would just turn into a bunch of fucking chaotic crazies.
Well, coming from the country that has the Second Amendment, what can you say? I mean,
quick question before we get back on the solar thing. I was watching an Australian film the other day. Didn't you get a chance to watch Wake and Fright, the reboot that came on TV, the reboot of Wake and Fright? And if you
no, I haven't. No, I have not seen that.
Oh my god, this is why I left. Jesus Christ, you hear this? So Wake and Fright is a reboot on TV that was a film that was about basically alcoholism. And it's about a British guy, I think it's some British dude, I want to say Peter O'Toole, but it's a guy who looks like Peter O'Toole, but he comes to Australia and basically he finishes his work and he's about to fly out. But these dudes approach him and say, mate, your flight's 2 hours, mate. Do you want to have a beer? And he's like, oh, well, I guess I should. And then what ends up occurring is like this 6-month drinking binge where there's just no money left and he spends it all on booze and gets completely wasted and lost in the outback and consumed by booze and alcohol and delirium. And that's the film. And they brought up a really interesting fact about the whole convict thing, and it's actually David Wenham who says it. He says, oh, it brings us back to our convict days, like the whole 2-Up and shit. Like,
oh yeah,
you remember 2-Up, yeah, which I'll be honest with you, I've never actually seen 2-Up, and it's legal in a lot of places, and it's just odd to see that like an Australian film was like, oh mate, it brings us back to our convict days, mate, playing all 2-Up.
Well, we're only allowed to play 2-Up on one day of the year.
Anzac Day, that's right, yeah.
Anzac Day.
At 6 o'clock in the morning, at 5 in the morning. Like the most dude.
That's basically, what's that the equivalent to in America? Like a Remembrance Day, I suppose.
Remembrance Day, yeah,
sure.
But you guys are crazy. Just so people don't know, is that Anzac Day, in my personal view, and this is just my personal thing here, is that all my friends would take the day off work and get absolutely plastered. Now, they would go to the ceremony of their friend that they had in the army, but what ensued was getting absolutely tanked from 6 a.m. and even the previous evening. There was always like a pre-drink, so, mate, tomorrow's going to be like a crazy day. And there's always that fucking Aussie that's like, come on, mate, we got to go look at the ceremony. honey, and then what ensues after that, because it closes at what 8 o'clock in the morning, and people have already been, drinking since like 6 a.m. So what ensues is like a whole weekend or two, a day or two more of 3 days of just people getting fucking wasted, and just
It tends to go on a bit, yes.
it goes on crazy, and it's both fantastic and both like, wait, if this didn't happen in like Ibiza, like, that's called alcoholism, sir. That's called some cultures.
Well, I think Australia's propensity to get drunk is maybe a little overstated. To be honest, I think.
What do you mean? Like, what do you mean? Go on. Like,
well, I think we might have been more of a drinking culture in the past. I think we're less of a drinking culture now than we
really?
What
What makes you say that?
I think so. No, I think that's true. I mean, I remember seeing a report some time ago saying that Australia was not in the top 10 biggest drinkers in the world anymore. It was like mostly Eastern Europe.
Okay, no, let's say it this way. You and me are in the city. It's a Friday afternoon. You and me aren't. We're in like a business meeting. I come along to just kind of be your admin guy, but the train's delayed by 2 hours. So we finished the meeting. It's about 3 in the afternoon, and there's a bar next door. Our train doesn't come in 2 hours because of delays. Do we walk in that bar, Arne? Is that what the culture tells us? Or do we just wait by the train? Because I'll be honest, the majority of Aussies I know are like, well, man, we got 2 hours. Let's use it. Like,
hang on, what, hang on, wait. What culture wouldn't do that? What culture would
I don't know.
go, I don't know, option A, option B. I could sit in a pub and have a drink, or I could sit at the side of a train track.
This was a big thing. When I moved to America, and if there was a wait in the bus, I'd turn to the guy that I've been chatting to, do you want to go to the bar, get a drink? He'd look at me like, what? Go over there and drink? I mean, I'll walk across the block and smoke a joint, but drinking, and you're like, okay, wait, I'm so confused as to what, like, wait.
Well, maybe it's not actually, maybe it's not about the actual drinking per se, maybe it's more about the act of going there and doing it.
Yeah, it's the act of physically walking in. Whereas if I ask any Aussie or British dude, they're like, well, what else were we going to do? Just sit here? You fucking American. What are we supposed to do? Just sit here on our phones? We'll do that in the bar. Fuck it. I feel like sometimes, like, Anna, do you feel that drinking is a cultural thing over there? Or do you feel it is just...
I guess I don't think it's as much of a big deal as you're trying to make it out to be.
Exactly right. Well, this is the whole thing. Like, all right, let's get some perspective here. If you're like a client meeting or a business meeting, and the guy's like, let's go to this bar, do you say no or do you say yes?
I think the answer is typically yes.
Yes, because because you want to make it a business thing. But I know people that would be like, no, I won't be able to get home. Whereas Australia, you can, and when you go to I think it's also part of like the whole social medicine thing. Like, I know we go out in Australia because we know that at the end of the day, no one's going to shoot us. No one's going to come in the bar and shoot at the bar. And if worst case scenario, if us approaching the bar, I fall over and smash my fucking head on the floor, you are going to be like, it's fine, we'll go to the hospital, but there's not going to be 300 grand debt after the event. I'm not going to be financially destroyed over one evening because I was an irresponsible person. Like, I think that's the mentality of everything's going to be okay. The government's looking out for us. We're looking out for us. No one's going to let anything bad happen. It's all fun and games, as opposed to here, it's like, well, if you do fall down, if you do get punched, you will go to jail. Like there's all these repercussions for all these things. Whereas all these are like, hey, calm down, settle down. Whereas over here, it's like, let's cuff them.
Yeah, I think there's more of a less of an adversarial kind of approach here. But it is getting. I mean, we do look to America. I mean, I always look to America. I look to America in terms of it being a bit ahead of the 8 ball in what you see in America will probably happen here in 5 to 10 years' time in some respects, politically and culturally, I think. So it's always interesting to look at America and see what's going on there, because it might be a little bit of a taste of what we're about to see or what we're about to experience here. We tend to be a bit of a follower, a little bit of a little brother kind of situation.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see. I'm not really sure where it'll go, but
and how do you feel about, so off topic because I just remember this, how do you feel about like American channels like CBS trying to purchase like Channel 10 over there? I mean, that to me sounds like a waste of everyone's time, bullshit, and really? Like, that's how much power you want? Like, you really want to control another, like, it's, yeah. How do you feel about that? Like, it just seems odd.
Yeah, it is odd. But, the other option was that we were going to get a Murdoch buying it.
Really?
So
really,
yeah.
I did not know that. Really?
So we had option A was Murdoch and option B was CBS. Now it actually was the staff had a vote in the acquisition. Yeah. So the staff the staff shareholders and all sorts of stuff.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, it actually came the vote it was like pretty evenly matched the votes, and then the staff eventually. The staff in the end sort of cast the deciding vote, and the staff's feedback. The staff didn't want to work for Murdoch, basically.
Really? They chose CBS.
The staff chose CBS. Yeah, so it actually came down to the staff and what they wanted. So keeping in mind that Murdoch had been a shareholder and investor in Channel 10 for years and years and years, and had some level of control over the board. And the staff just went, no. The staff went, no, we do not want to deal with you.
Wow.
So, so I think, I don't hold out a lot of hope for the future of television, full stop. But
So you're telling me. So wait, one thing first before, and let's show this quickly before we get back to the Murdoch thing, because I really want to get your thoughts on that shit. But is that casino that because I remember when I left, there was a casino outside of like the top end of the Rocks that he was gonna have there, and it was gonna compete with like Dark Casino, and you were allowed to smoke cigarettes inside, and did that actually
this
happen?
is Packers Casino, yeah.
Oh, is that the Packer Casino? Sorry, I got them confused. Sorry. So is that actually...
No. I mean, one media mogul over another one.
Is that occurring? Is that actually happening? Is it...
Oh, yeah. Yeah, he's greased the right palms. He's got the collusion. He's made donations to the right political parties, and...
Is currently under construction? Is it being...
Well, I mean, the joke about him is, it's happening right now. I mean, the joke about, well, not joke, it's kind of sad. But just to prove my point, we had the ex-president of the New South Wales Labor Party, so that's the equivalent of the Democrats in the US, so it's like Donna Brazil going and working for a casino operator and lobbying for casino operator. That's kind of what happened, right? But not just the Labor Party, but he also then got someone from the Liberal Party, which is again like a Republican. So not that that's any surprise, but essentially he just paid off and hired his own politicians after they left Parliament, or basically he probably got them to leave Parliament, work for him, and then go back into Parliament and lobby on his behalf. So that's how you do it when you got lots of money.
So those,
which is a sad indictment on our democracy.
This is fucking crazy, dude. For those who do not know, Arne, can I get your educated rundown on who Murdoch and Packer are? Because it seems like they do control a lot of shit here in America too, and a lot of people aren't 100% aware of it, of this guy's power in terms of influence.
Well, his reach, yeah.
Yeah, so if you could give us a quick snapshot or a quick rundown of both Murdoch and Packer, that would be great, sir, from your opinion.
Well, Murdoch and Packer were competing forces. So, I mean, look, both of them are, they didn't make their fortune themselves. So both Murdoch and Packer are sons of the people that made the money. And now we've got a third generation Packer, and we're obviously contending with the third generations of Murdochs. So, I mean, Murdoch is, but I consider Murdoch to be a bit of a dinosaur now. I mean, I think, he's really cast himself into, what's the average age? Okay, get this, Dan. What's the average age of a Fox News viewer? Guess. What's the average
You know what? I'm going to be honest, they're obviously going to be a baby boomer of some kind, so I would say I'm going to go 65.
Not bad. That's pretty close, but higher.
68?
No, higher.
But 70?
Higher. It's 72. So 72 is the average age.
72 years old? They must hate. They must be old and angry. They must be really angry.
So when I hear that, exactly.
Really? It's
so
72?
When I hear, yeah.
But
So
that's
Trump fits right into the demographics. Trump is the perfect demographic. He's white. He's like in his 70s, and
yeah. But how many people is that? Like, I mean, how many 72-year-olds we got going and fuck this place?
Well, I mean, how many people under the age of 40 get their news solely from the newspaper and TV?
Hey, well,
No one.
Well, that's
No one.
interesting.
No one.
Jesus. So they're still reading the paper. That's what you're saying. They're still reading the paper.
Well, they're watching TV. They're reading the newspaper. So so Murdoch is TV newspaper. He's that dying generation. I can't see how that is sustainable for him going forward. But what is a bit more of a worry in my book is the power of Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, or I guess Facebook. But the power of those Silicon Valley companies to regulate and to control what is becoming, I guess, the only way you can, like, okay, let's say you're a public intellectual or you're a celebrity and Twitter just decides to cut your account.
Yeah.
What impact would that have for you financially?
Well, I would lose a large portion of my followers and viewers. Yeah, I mean, that would be a problem, yeah.
So we're basically, I think we're in a situation now where I think, worrying about Murdoch is just like worrying about something which is just about to die. So it's natural attrition. It will die off. But what you should worry about, and what I think we should worry about, is Facebook, Twitter, and those kind of platforms.
Yeah, see, but I like Zuckerberg, though. I preach this to pretty much everyone. I'm a big fan of Zuckerberg. I believe his speech on AT&T and phone companies, I'll be honest, kind of changed my life. I'll be honest. And he said that the mere fact that we pay to contact and speak to each other, that the mere fact that we do pay is an absolute insult to our species. And look, and I will say this is, yes, he's made profit, and yes, he's been dodgy, and yes, it's our data not being collected. But I will say this is that it is easy to make a phone call easier on Facebook than it is over a Verizon and so forth and so on over Wi-Fi. And also, I do feel is that, I mean, his pop-ups in terms of like Congress now, especially being American, I do get a lot of pop-ups of saying, do you want to contact your representative? How do you feel? I do appreciate that. And when it did come to election time, Facebook was extremely clear, concise, and fast and it popped up all the time on where I could go to vote, how I felt, their rules, what they felt, where I could sign up. I found it to be very handy and useful and actually kind of reinvigorate the feeling of democracy, if I could be that rose-colored glasses with you, sir. It did feel that way. And I mean, even so, I do think that Facebook is going to save us all. And on top of that, the other big thing I have with Facebook is that before, if we wanted to be like, if you and me were like the government shit, we would have to write actual letters, petition, get people. Now all we have to do is hashtag or tag them, and it's all there. It's all tracked. It's the first time that I think our society actually has kind of a cumulative voice that if we don't like anything, we can actually comment, and it adds a public forum to a lot of things. But I mean, that's true in terms of like the more dramatic things that have become. I do think that things have become a lot more over dramatic now because of Facebook and social media. I'm completely converted to that.
Well, it speeds up communications, doesn't it? Ultimately, like, so it speeds up. But in the process of speeding up that communications, there is a filter that's lost, right? That I guess the press used to, journalists used to fulfill that role.
Well, to Facebook is.
I hear what you're saying, but it can also just become an echo board for everyone's opinions, and the old thing, everyone's got just like. Opinions are like arseholes. Everyone's got one.
Yes, but have you ever sat down with like a crazy Republican or a liberal, aka the Republicans in Australia, who were like, "No, I don't want to talk about it," and you're like, "Well, this is important. We're about to vote on gay marriage. Don't want to talk about it," and it's like, "Hey, man. You just paid a shit ton of taxes. You live here. You should have an opinion. I mean, good or bad, that is your right. That is a democratic right. And people who are like, I don't want to be involved in this shit, is like someone saying, I don't want to be a person, but yet I'll pay taxes, have all the repercussions of it. But yet what I feel and say I don't want to be projected. It sounds odd.
Well, I guess what my objection to Mark Zuckerberg is being the product of like being a customer and also being the product. I think that's probably more. I think and being conscious of that.
Yeah,
I mean, yes, they need to make money out of it and they need to pay for all that platform development and all that sort of stuff.
Well,
but also, how much money is Mark Zuckerberg worth? I mean, how much more money does he actually need?
Mate, he did say he was going to scale it down. Now he did say he was going to scale it down, and this is getting, ridiculous.
But his attitude's changed a lot since the election, hasn't it? I mean, before the election, he didn't want to do anything about filtering anything that was going on Facebook, and now he's saying that he'd prefer to listen to people's. I mean, again, I'm not convinced that what he's proposing is actually going to solve the problem.
In that as well, too, dude, is that this is the whole thing. See, this is the big problem. Is that with Trump being the president, it did for some reason wake everybody up and go, shit, I gotta care about this shit. So like that's the whole thing, is that once the worst case scenario actually occurred, everybody went, holy shit, I should have gotten drunk and voted. Like everybody kind of woke up. So it's not just him. Everybody went, man, I really should have gotten to the polls that day. Like shit. 2020, that's not going to happen again. Like I know so many people that have told me now that they regret not voting. That 2020 happens, they'll be lined up, no problems. Like it really has. The weirdest thing about Trump is that because things have gotten so crazy and so bad, it's actually made people give a shit again, which is the point.
Well, yeah. So, I mean, there's this movement in America which is trying to take over the Democrats, Justice Democrats, and there's another one, I can't remember the name of it. But they're primarying all of the conservative Democrats that are sitting in both the Senate and the House. And I applaud them for that. I think that's the most brilliant thing. Like, if they can kick out Dianne Feinstein and Joe Manchin and a whole bunch of those.
Shit like that. Well, Sessions, FYI to all those listening, Sessions was questioned again by Robert Mueller today. How is this man in my job? Like, how are all these people in it? Arne, I'll be honest, if the FBI questioned you right now, I don't know if I would feel comfortable speaking to you and working with you. But apparently in America, if it happens every day, they run power, get paid, and do whatever they want.
Yeah, the Republican Party is a very peculiar beast, so I really don't understand, where they're coming from exactly. I mean, it's peculiar. I mean, you've got basically a party that doesn't believe in government.
That's true, but don't forget though, like, what was it, the results for the whole gay marriage thing in Australia about, like, well, wasn't it like the majority of people who voted no were from like the southwestern side of Sydney? And it's like
no, actually, interestingly enough, like no, they were all pretty much Western Sydney, and they were in migrant communities.
Really? Why?
Yeah.
Is that?
So if you're a first or second generation Muslim from Lebanon or whatever, chances are your upbringing and belief structures don't really fit with the concept of gay marriage. And I mean, whether it be across Asia or Middle East or Africa, where we've taken a lot of refugees.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, the same true. So yeah, it's actually really interesting. Like a lot of the, I hate to say, just the white community in Australia voted yes, and the immigrant community didn't. But I understand
because
why.
it's hot.
But it was at the end of the day. But at the end of the day, it was over 60. It was 62% yes.
Yeah, I know. Which
So
is crazy.
So it's a pretty good vote. I mean, and I think it's so frustrating. It's so frustrating, and the same in America too. You feel like all of the energy in politics is spent on debating things which are just obvious, and that clearly the majority of people are in favour of, and it becomes a contentious issue because there's one person in Parliament or in Congress or whatever that throws a spanner in the works. It's in our case, it was Tony Abbott, who was
Tony Abbott, man.
Our onion-eating prime minister. Was,
that Americans have no idea, and when people understand it with the whole Tony Abbott thing, they're like, the fuck? And it's like, yeah, you're not the only one who's going to fund up.
Well, I mean, you always have to put Australia into perspective. I mean, Australia is no bigger than Los Angeles.
Yeah.
In terms of population, so we're about the same size.
I'll be honest, California. Like California is fucking crazy, dude. And I really wanted to go check it out some more. But but the one thing I wanted to say was like it's crazy how much anytime that there's a problem in government, it's like, okay, things aren't going well in, let's say, Iraq, Iran, and so forth, and the president's committed multiple laws. We always go back to the transgender shit, gay and transgender. And I gotta say, it's always a scapegoat. It is the biggest scapegoat in the world. Like, to make people walk around their own house and go, I don't know how I feel about that, while we're bombing countries, while he's extorting places, while there's laws being blatantly broken. It just seems like we're focused on all this petty bullshit. And it's like, those things don't really matter. And two, honestly, you probably wouldn't recognize one, care, or even pick up on it. It's the whole Colosseum in Rome thing again. We're being distracted by this 1% of the population that really is no big deal, guys. Let's face it. If the transgender thing, the whole gay thing, it doesn't matter. It doesn't care. It doesn't affect anything. But yet us with taxes and money and solar and power and everything else, nah, don't give a shit. Kick out all the gays. And you're like, but you're going to pay more taxes. No, I won't.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's classic smokescreen, isn't it? I mean, it's just classic smokescreen. Just, hey, look over here, squirrel, look over here. I mean, don't actually focus on the major issues. But I mean, look, I think the press has been very complicit in this too. I mean, the stuff about Russia, I think, has been, majorly overblown. I mean, I think, sure, there might be something there. Sure, fine.
There's tons there, dude. There's tons there, but no one cares. No one gives a shit.
But I mean, it's like, it's insane. America has this bizarre thing, the last, I was in America once in the 90s.
Many times,
and I was in America, I was in San Fran for, I don't know, 3 or 4 months in the 90s.
Yeah.
And
great times those were. Looking back, the 90s were wonderful.
Well, it was around the, do you remember that Lorena Bobbitt? Do you remember that?
A little bit.
The woman that cut her husband's dick off.
And threw it out the window?
And threw it out the window of a moving car.
And you know what? I do, but I remember also thinking, oh my God, are we going to war? Like, that's way more important.
Well,
Holy
okay.
shit.
The reason why I remember that is because the obsession, it was just 24/7 news in America, 24/7. You couldn't hear any other story other than fucking Lorena Bobbitt, 24/7.
So in America at that time, wow, that's fucking crazy.
Yeah. So I think American media has this sort of obsession, and I think we're seeing now is basically the same thing, but with Russia and Trump. It's we're seeing it's just this, just.
Well, that's called,
that's what they want to churn out.
betrayal. It's an illegal crime. And here we are worried about gays getting married and transgenders, but yet our country's colluding with another country to win an election. But it's okay because we.
Well, no, but I think the problem here is this argument gets the Democrats off the hook.
Oh,
so
that's right.
So it's sort of like, like we don't have to look at ourselves. We don't actually have to analyze why we don't support single payer healthcare, why we don't support free college education, why we don't support this and that and the other. If we analyze,
never be paid back. It's physically impossible. You cannot go to college and owe $300,000 and have no job and then pay it back over the rest of your life. It doesn't make sense. It's not feasible, and it's a great way to make everybody bankrupt. Oh wait, is that what's happening? It's stupid. It's stupid.
Yeah, it is incredibly stupid.
It's a waste of time too.
It's ridiculous. So I think we're on the precipice, basically. I think there's a certain generation probably doesn't really get what we're talking about.
What do you mean? What do you mean by that?
Over a certain age, I think there are people that wouldn't get what we're talking about because they don't expose themselves to alternate news sources. They don't critically think about the news that they're presented.
Yeah, but hold
on. I think it's a generational thing.
Isn't that people like? See, I don't know anymore. I don't think so, because I've met young, angry Republicans. I'll be honest. I think it's the thought of change.
But are they getting their news from Fox News? I bet they're not.
Dude, they get their news from anywhere humanly possible.
I bet they get a lot of it from Breitbart and Infowars and.
Well, look, Alex Jones is. Did you ever watch? Anyway, we'll get back to Alex Jones.
I know Alex Jones.
Look, the fact that he lives dreams for days and days is how he does it. That's why. But it seems like, I'll be honest with you, it does feel like a lot of young Republicans feel like they went to college or did some level of education, did what they were supposed to, but yet felt left behind. So they're angry, and I think that anger, I think, supersedes everything. I think that a lot of Republicans, and because emotion can overshadow a fact. Like, if I physically saw Neil Armstrong landing on the moon on TV and my family cheering, and you tell me no, it didn't, I have an emotional connection to that. Fuck you, you're wrong. That night was incredible. That my family was in the best mood. We had the best family night ever. That cemented itself. I think it's this whole kind of. I think that a lot of young Republicans are just angry because we're at a phase in the world where the technology is phasing out jobs as well too, and people are getting angry because we can't get just the regular job and progress up the ladder in a corporate environment. Like we're told that we.
Well, the major problem that's both in America and Australia. I mean, we're both in the same boat here. But I mean, America's worse, but we're both in the same boat. Is this income and wealth inequality?
Yes.
So
wealth inequality.
But income inequality too. Like, we're our wages haven't really gone up at all in the last since the late 70s.
Yeah, but
American wages have stagnated.
Yeah, but
or gone down.
Wages, looking back, when I got paid in Australia, I mean, I really should have thanked the stars, and that was hard to really kind of handle. Is that, I mean, Americans, and also things do kind of cost less. But it's the same way of, things are still expensive as well. But I really should have, I mean, the wages in Australia did make life a lot easier and less stressful. Getting paid a minimum
just for the American audience, the minimum wage in Australia is around $17 to $18 Australian per hour. So it's around the $15 American.
Yes, exactly right. Like, look, I'll be honest. When I worked in solar, I was on a very high wage of at least $70 at least 65 to 70,000. But over here, when I went for solo jobs, it was like, you're going to be paid $9 an hour. And you're like, but aren't we in a bigger country with more people and more of this? It really does make things kind of, you go from fuck this place to, how good did I actually have it? Like being paid a proper wage for what, I mean, look, to begin things up. And I also do recall working in hospitality, which I do know you guys changed your rates, right? You guys
award
rates. Yes. How is that impacting things? I mean, and explain that for the people who don't know, because that, I will be honest, as a person who worked in Australia, as a young man in, like, say, hospitality and shit, I did rely on that to kind of, bankroll all my partying, to work on the weekends. And
well, first thing I'd say is that we don't have the concept of tips in Australia at all. Like, this just does not enter into it at all. Like, you don't get
$20 an hour, so.
But you pay $20 an hour, so you don't make the tip, but you make an even wage according. Everyone makes the same kind of money, so it's a bit more socialist, I suppose, in that respect, but also more equal.
And everyone
I think,
goes out and spends the money in the economy daily. Everyone goes out together and spends it in the economy, and then we repeat that cycle again and again and again and again.
Well, if you want to stimulate the economy, don't give it to the rich, give it to the poor. That's what they say, right? Yeah.
At least go
so,
to
I mean,
the pub.
Because the rich guy's already got everything he needs, so he's not going to spend any more money. But the poor people who don't have anything, they'll spend the money that they're given almost straight away.
Exactly right.
So it's pretty straightforward economics. But in Australia, if you're working on a weekend or a public holiday, then you get what's called a penalty rate. So that means that you get a penalty for the employer for employing you on a public holiday, effectively. So that means the employer used to have to pay double time and a half. So in other words, 2.5 times, or 2.5x the standard minimum wage or whatever the wage is of that person. So up until 6 months ago, you would have got paid double time and a half. Now you just get paid double time. So it's a bit of a wind back of conditions for hospitality workers. And of course, there was a big uproar because those hospitality workers, I guess like in America, they rely on tips, but like here, they rely on getting the weekend and public holiday work in order to get that penalty rate. So there was a big pushback on that, obviously. But nonetheless, the right-wing government here got it through. So we are back where we are. So, I mean, we have Americans are probably not very oblivious about Australian politics, but there are a lot of parallels between Australia and America, a lot of parallels. We have two houses. We have Senate and the House of Reps. We have seats that are sort of not gerrymandered as badly as America, but they nonetheless are a bit weird.
That's true. That's very true.
But there's a lot of similarities, and also, but the main similarity is that all of our politicians are able to take unlimited cash donations from corporations. That's the main similarity that sets us, America, United States, apart from the rest of the world. And even to the point, we had a big fallout. We had a big scandal here late last year where where an Australian senator got effectively kicked out of Parliament, and he got kicked out of Parliament for taking money from Chinese, not even Australian citizens, Chinese citizens. He was taking money from Chinese citizens, and then was going into forums talking about policy, Australian foreign policy. Saying that we support the South China, that China's pushing to the South China Sea, which was counter to the Australian government policy and was counter to the policy of his own party. So, and that just showed you, even to the point this politician was taking money to pay for his personal bills. So he was taking money from these Chinese donors to pay for his personal bills. So Australia is rife with corruption in terms of political donations. But in America, it's really bad. Australia is quite bad. But but that permeates a lot of the decision making that goes on. So if you see, I mean, like again, if I was a business, right, and again, I'm a corporation. I have a fiduciary responsibility to my shareholders to make money for them, to make money, right, and to give them the best return possible. That's my obligation. So if I give money to a political party, what, do I expect a return or not? What do you think?
I mean,
given the fact that I have a fiduciary responsibility to make money, not give it away. I have no fiduciary responsibility to give money away. I have a fiduciary responsibility to make money. So if I give money to a politician, do you think I expect a return as a businessman?
I mean, look, yes, I would eventually, or a social influence of some kind. Yes. I mean, through my understanding, at least.
So I mean, that to me is the heart of all the problems. I mean, if you want to come back to renewable energy, we can talk about that. You know, Trump just slapped a 30% tariff on imported solar panels the other day.
I gotta say though, I remember working in solar and the American panels being always the greatest, the best, the most efficient things, and people and clients tell me I can't afford American panels. They're too expensive. They're too efficient. And so, like, part of me does go back to how that I did see that he slapped on, I think, a 30% tariff or something like that.
It was a 30% tariff.
30%, yeah, that's right. I thought it was
30%.
Yeah, but
yeah, no, I'm aware there are American manufacturers of solar panels, but then I guess they can't be very competitive, then, can they? And you know, it goes very much against the whole, not any notion of free trade. I mean, Trump, I guess, didn't campaign on free trade. He was against the TPP and against NAFTA and so on. But
that's true.
I mean, he slapped tariffs on something else. So I think washing machines or something out of China.
But like,
very strange. I mean, you can only see that as really an attack on renewable energy, can't you? I mean, you can only see that as being like.
See, I don't. I try not to, and I'll tell you why. I looked through the Facebook comments, is that there are so many American companies out there producing solar panels, but they can't compete with the Chinese cost.
Well, I guess then they shouldn't be in business.
Okay, yeah, that's a good point. Well, I mean, yeah.
If you're a pure capitalist, I mean, what are you, a capitalist or are you a socialist?
Hey, right, yeah, but that's true, that's true. But efficiency, like, I know, it is sad if you created the world's most efficient panels in the world and you cannot beat price, you will be bought out and literally raped by the industry and then taken up and then stolen and taken. It's just, and look.
But isn't that what America's all about? I mean,
that is
free, unfettered capitalism. I mean, so on one hand, so this is the thing that gets me about is the hypocrisy of some of the politicians in America. I mean, whether it be, you know, right to life, like, you know, we're going to protect the fetus until it's born, and then we'll give it a gun, and then it can shoot its mother. Or, you know, whatever.
That's a very big topic, sir. That's a very, very big. But yes, we can go on to that. Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, it's replete with hypocrisy. That's all I'm trying to get at. I mean, there's hypocrisy in a lot of the decision making that goes on, and I mean, Australia is not immune to that at all. Australia gets a lot of that, but America is up in the lights. I mean,
but it's true. I mean, in terms of cost, you can't. I mean, look, as a capitalist and so forth and so on. I mean, we should have the best panels out there, and it should be homegrown. I mean, a lot of products in America are not made in America. And I get Trump's thing of, like, it's the one thing I get of his, is trying to get things back here. Like, I get that, and it's more expensive, it's more painful, it's probably not going to have as good a quality, who knows? It's a risk, but I do think that we do need to get that aspect back, even though it will cripple China and Japan.
Yeah, I mean, you know, Australia just gave away its car industry. We got rid of that. So our manufacturing base is pretty much disappearing. And
what the fuck? That is crazy, isn't it? Is that it is gone? There is no more Australian cars to buy.
But just last week though, Sanjeev Gupta, who's a massive British Indian businessman, he recently bought Wireless Steelworks and said that he would convert it into a renewable energy driven steelworks within 10 years, which is interesting.
How do you do that? That sounds hard. Extremely hard.
Lot of self-generation. So he's putting in a combination of solar, wind, and hydro and battery. So massive investment in energy generation.
Wow.
And he wants to make the world's first renewable steel mill or something, or as much as it can be. And then he's just came back last week and announced that he's going to take over, or wants to take over, the old General Motors Holden factory in Victoria. Wants to build electric cars in Australia.
No shit.
Yeah. Low cost electric cars, yeah. And then wants to export them to India and other places.
That is crazy. I mean, that would be the dream. I mean, to make an Australian car that'd be nice.
Well, I mean, Australia has the expertise. We've got,
it's the same as every other country. It's just, they have.
Well, I mean, but would we in 20 years' time? I mean, that's the question, right? So we're off the back of an auto industry, so it would make sense to try and establish one now using the existing skill sets that are out there. I mean,
amen, dude. Amen.
Yeah. Anyway, so it'd be interesting to see. Yeah. But yeah. So the biggest. I'll just quickly recap. The biggest challenge to renewable energy is politics, and politicians interfering with the economy, with the basic economy. So if they subsidise coal or nuclear, then that creates a clear disadvantage for renewables, which they are doing, and they do all over the world. Or the government itself is building its own coal-fired power stations because it knows that business won't do it itself, because business doesn't see it as economic.
Really?
So they're doing it in Japan, for example. Yeah,
that is
the government's building.
Really?
So yeah. So they're just going, well, business isn't going to build these assets, so we'll build them. So the biggest risk in my head to renewable energy and success of renewable energy is just intransigence by government, holding it back. But as I say, the economics now, it's not even a philosophical argument. You can talk to a right-wing person or a left-wing person about solar panels. The left-wing person will say, oh, it's saving the planet and we're ending pollution, carbon, blah, 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 blah. The right-wing person will go, this makes sense economically. I make money. Good. And so it doesn't matter whether you're from the left or the right wing, and I'm probably simplifying the right wing perspective a little bit there, but it doesn't matter whether you're from the left or the right wing perspective. I'm simplifying both, I suppose. It doesn't matter if you're from left or the right.
We're not noticing. It's fine.
At the end of the day, at the end of the day, the left and the right are now on the same page about renewable energy. It's only the kind of idiots that go on about climate change being a hoax or whatever. But even if climate change is a hoax, it still makes more economic sense to invest in solar and storage than it does in coal. So it doesn't matter whether you believe in climate change or not, and this is what I can say to anyone that arcs up about climate change being a hoax or whatever. It's like, who cares? It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what you believe there. It's an irrelevant argument. It just is totally irrelevant. Like you can argue till the cows come home about whether there is climate change or not. Is irrelevant, because ultimately it's just about, all this is about is investment. Will you invest in this type of technology or this type of technology? And investors are rushing to the new technology, and they're rushing away from old technology. And I mean, even to the point where there's divestment movement. So there's this thing called the divestment movement, where communities are in divestment. So communities are encouraging their bank or their university or whatever to sell their shares in fossil fuel companies. And this is it's happening, and there's actually pressure being brought upon the market by the community saying, sell everything that you've got in fossil fuels and invest in renewables. So there's sort of multiple pushes that are happening, but ultimately it's just the vested interests now that have got they've got money tied up in coal mines, and they've got money tied up in coal infrastructure, whatever.
Exactly.
They're the ones who are fighting it, because they've got money that they need to make a return on. So they'll fight it till the cows come home. But everyone else is like, already moved. They've moved on. That to them, the argument is already a thing of yesterday. And so 2018 is a time of transition. 2018 is the year. This is the year.
Good, dear God.
Where it transitions from being a thing that's really good to do for the environment and makes me feel good to being a thing that just makes sense. Why would you not do this? And this is the year that happens. That transition happens.
So wait, are you saying to conclude this podcast at 2 hours and 2? And thank you, Arne, your time. I really do appreciate it.
That's been good.
So
good
are you saying that eventually people in society are just going to change over to renewables because it's just the more logical, sensible, easiest way?
Well, let me give you another example here. If you build a property and it's on a rural block, and it's a little bit of distance from the street. Okay, so if you have that situation now, right?
Yeah.
What will happen is the power company will say, we're going to charge you $30,000 to $40,000 to put in X number of power poles, and connect you up to the grid. So if you have that proposition of saying it's going to cost $30,000 to $40,000 just to connect to the grid, versus I can spend $30,000 to $40,000 on battery storage and solar panels and so on, and a backup generator.
Yeah.
And not connect to the grid, and then not have to pay the ongoing fees.
Yeah.
So this is the reality that you're finding. That reality already exists, and that's been happening for 10, 15 years. That reality.
That's very.
It's just a very simple economic argument there. Why would I bother connecting to the grid when I can do this, right? And I think now it's come around so far that I'm in a position myself where I'm looking at disconnecting from the grid in this residential space with an investment probably no more of about $10,000 to $15,000.
Really? No shit. Yeah. No shit. Yeah.
And that investment will pay itself back off in 7 years, 6 to 7 years.
Really? In 7 years?
Yeah. Panels are rated to last 20 years, and I'll have it paid off in 6 to 7 years. So that's basically 13 years of free power, effectively.
Yeah, that's true way. Especially if you can keep them clean and all that kind of stuff. Yeah.
So anyway, it's an interesting thing. I've also been separately talking to local government about trying to take back some of these assets from the state governments.
Please do.
The power assets.
Dear God, please do, please.
What's that?
Please do, please, because they own too much. Yeah.
Well, I think it's actually just about recognising the fact that age of centralisation of electricity is over. It's dead. And we're moving back now to the old world, actually. We're moving back so we've gone decentralised, centralised, decentralised. It's pretty much the course of the history, effectively, of electricity, put simply.
Round and round we go, history repeats itself.
Well, we can laugh at the follies of the baby boomers. The baby boomers built all that infrastructure, and I think you'll find that most of it's redundant and is really just costing us a lot of money to maintain.
Controversial point, sir. Sorry.
No. Well, it's true. It's true. It was all built in the 50s, 60s, and 70s. So
that's true. Yeah.
And that was the way to go. So anyway, we're on a very interesting time for renewable energy, and I think also politics too. Politics and this renewable energy space are intrinsically linked, and that's why it's interesting to watch what's going on. So
it's awesome.
But anyway,
well, thank you so much for being on the podcast. We're now at 2 hours and 5 minutes, and I will not take up any more of your time, sir. Thank you so much for being on. You blow my mind away, and I look forward to speaking to you again, sir.
Okay, thank you, Dan. Thanks for your time today. It was good. Enjoyed it.
You blow my mind away, man. You have learned. I've learned it. All right, man. Well, thank you again, Arne. Have a good night, man.
You too. Have a good one. Cheers.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.
guys, for listening, and that'll be the end of the AUSmericaPodcast for now. Thanks, guys, and thank you, Arne.
Thanks, Dan. Cheers. Bye-bye.